My name is Jeanelle Austin, and I am lead caretaker for the George Floyd Memorial. Here at GFS, we have been building community. I think that this past year has been deeply impactful and profound because I've been doing racial justice work for about 15 plus years. I know black don't crack, but to be able to watch the way in which community gathers and shows up for each other has made me convinced that community is the antidote to racism. When we are able to come together and lean into each other's needs, to know each other's names, to develop the kind of moral and social authority, to hold each other accountable, to do the right thing, and pursue justice, really. Justice is the process of making things right. So we can't always wait for our government institutions to do the right thing. So what does it look like for us as a community to come together and say, well, we are going to do the right thing for ourselves. We are going to pursue justice. We are going to build equity. We are going to build capacity. We are going to build the power that we need to actually raise everybody up together. So my work with caretaking it started out with picking up garbage, literally. It was just, let me come every day, every morning, 6 a.m., and just start picking up garbage and straightening up the memorial so the city couldn't have a reason to say, oh, no one's taking care of it. And that evolved into a massive operations to the point where we had to form the George Floyd Global Memorial. So we partnered with Miss Angela Harrelson, George Floyd's aunt, and Miss Paris Stevens, his first cousin, and the community to say, let's form an organization that will govern the offering so everybody can enjoy it for years to come. And that the story can be told well, the story can be told right. And in so many ways, we push against systemic racism to ensure that our narrative is not commandeered by the systems of whiteness that exist within the museum industry, right? And so we've committed to building a rememory experience in the tradition of Toni Morrison's book, Beloved, to be able to say, when you walk into the space, you will remember where we were during the Minneapolis uprising. There will be offerings everywhere. Because if you were here last summer, it was up the street, around the corner, down the street, up high. You were consumed with offerings. I call them creative expressions of pain and hope, but really protest art. People coming and laying down their protest through creative expressions. And we are preserving and conserving that. So I like to say, as caretakers, we live in the balance of preservation and protest. This is the work that we do. And it's important to understand that with racism in America, it originated with the stripping away of narrative and story, right? When you take people from their land, when you take people from their tribe, when you strip them of their clothes, when you strip them of their name, when you give them a new name, when you don't give them a last name so they can trace their lineage, when you place them on somebody else's land who you murdered and killed so that way you can claim it and take it for yourself, all of that is erasing narrative and story, which is why it's so important for the people to be able to say, we are telling our own story. We are going to ensure that the story of the Minneapolis uprising at 38th in Chicago is not taken and commandeered by institutions that exist to make money, but to be able to say, no, this is the people's story. And we should be able to tell our own story. This is a story that has emerged out of a movement for Black liberation. And we should be able to tell our own story. And so the George Floyd Global Memorial really exists to push against the systemic racism in the art industry, in the art institutions, and to say, no, there's another way to do this in a way that says the community, they are the storytellers, and we are simply the ones who keep and uphold their stories so that they can be heard correctly for generations to come.
Thank you for all that. Where can people find this specific, you were just telling these youth.
Yeah,
the website. Can you talk about that real quick?
Absolutely. So our hashtags handles everything GFG Memorial. G as in global or George, F as in Floyd, G as in Global Memorial.org. George Floyd Global Memorial.org. Handles GFG Memorial, Facebook, Instagram, all the social medias, except I don't do TikTok, y'all. I ain't there yet. But you can find our presence there. And then as well, if you show up, we have a pop-up exhibit here at the Chicago Avenue Fire Arts Center, just right behind this greenhouse. And you can see about 200 of the 2,000 pieces that we have conserved and preserved over the past year. And when you walk in, it is an experience. I have watched people collapse to the ground in tears because they remember. And there's something about remembering that's powerful, right? There's something about remembering that forms a deep kind of love and connection. There's something about memory that strengthens us. It's like around the corner here, there's that Sankofa bird that's up against the wall. The Sankofa bird is a West African image that means you have to look back in order to understand where you're going. The feet are facing forward, the head is looking back. If we do our job correctly at the George Floyd Global Memorial, we will always in Minneapolis be able to look back and understand our path forward, because we will continue to tell the story and tell the story the right way.
When is the gallery open for people in the public to see?
Absolutely. So we are open Tuesdays through Thursdays, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. Y'all, we in Central. And then Fridays and Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And so we take Sundays and Mondays off, though today we had a special opening because we're like, hey, the people are here, let's open for the people. But we got to practice self-care too. So we take Sundays and Mondays as a break, and then and we operate completely as a volunteer basis with our neighbors and community members to hold space and be able to tell the story as a neighborhood of how we've been caring for your story, for your art. So actually what we really need is for people to come in and see if they see their piece. Because if you see your piece, we want to know your story, right? Because you marched in a protest. You gave or drew or did whatever it is that was a part of you and laid it as an offering. We don't know your story, and we don't want to make up your story. So please come by, stop at George Floyd Square, go into the Chicago Avenue Fire Arts Center, and see if you see their piece. Now, there's only 200 pieces out right now, but later when we get more out, you'll be able to come back and still discover your piece and be able to tell us your story. So we look forward to seeing you. We look forward to greeting you, and we look forward to knowing who are the people that we've been caring for by extension of your work.
We're going to have to take a tour of that one day.
Yes!
I don't know if you do that today because I know you're probably busy, but thank you for all that, and thank you for telling the audience that. Can I ask you another question real quick?
Absolutely.
What is some of maybe the biggest struggles you've faced here being a caretaker?
Besides wind?
Well, she saw a lot of today.
Like wind, rain, tornadoes. No. The biggest struggle I faced being a caretaker. I think so. We have two fundamental guidelines of being a caretaker. The first one is everything is somebody's offering, therefore nothing is thrown away. And two, that the people are more sacred than the memorial itself. Not everybody looks at an offering and says that is beautiful and that is somebody's story and that needs to be saved. I've gone dumpster diving multiple times throughout this past year because people would throw things away. And we literally believe that whether it's like a 2-year-old who drew scratches on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, or if it is a masterpiece, like they are all equitable stories because they came out of that person's heart and soul of processing what has happened to us collectively as a community. But not everybody sees it that way, and they look at something and say, this is trash. And so we go back and we say, nope, that's not trash. I've pulled blankets out the garbage. I've went dumpster diving for like stacks of protest signs that we were saving. I went in saving like little tiny rocks that were painted by people. But everybody's voice matters. So that's been a challenge. The other challenge is, so not everybody who comes to this space actually understands the space. And so we will get people who come as pilgrims. I like to say George Floyd Square operates with any 5 things happening at the same time. You have community, liberation, public grief, pilgrimage, and protest. And at any given point, you can find one or all of those 5 things happening. With pilgrims, not every pilgrim understands the space that they're coming to, and they're working out their own questions. But the commitment that we've made as caretakers is to be present for people. And that means sometimes even if we're having a rough day or a bad day and somebody comes up to us in tears and they're trying to process through all their racism and attitudes, shouldering that and taking that on for even that moment can be heavy and hard. Now, we know how to let that stuff go and not carry it with us for all day long, but in the moment, like, it's not always easy to walk with other people in their questions or walk with other people in their grief and their pain, especially if I had a bad day. And so that is a discipline, and it's a challenge. But I have watched the caretakers rise to the occasion and really service the people. Because we say here in George Floyd Square, people over property, day in, day out, people over property. Because the way racism works is it always values people as property, or it values property more than people. And so that's what it means to be a caretaker, is to not just take care of the offerings and the dirt and the plants and the streets, but it really is to say, who are the people right in front of us, and can we stop our regular scheduled program to turn and hold space for the person standing right in front of us. And that's not always easy to do, but it is a gift, and it is our joy, and it is our privilege to do, for sure.
Word. Thank you for all that. That's a lot. It sounds like quite a difficult task, but it seems like you all are
rewarding
because it's been going on for this long.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's been a lot of threats to this space continually since it started. The city was making a lot of threats in August. They're making a lot of threats now. What is the caretakers' thoughts and other folks that you know around this community thoughts? Maybe you could surmise them. Not that you speak for everybody, but what did you feel like is the feeling around here comparing thoughts around the threats, right? Like
no justice, no streets. that's the summary. No justice, no streets. No, but that's really important, right? So if you look at Justice Resolution 001, the first line says, whereas a city employee on city time killed a man. That matters, right? So if you were to go into any company or corporation and they had an employee just straight up murder somebody, like hardcore, like on the floor, that company would be held accountable. And so out of that came trauma in this community. And so when you have the community gathering together and say, that's unacceptable in our backyard, on our streets, in our neighborhood, and we need to be able to hold our elected officials accountable to say, how are you going to repair the harm, right? They asked us, what does justice look like? And we answered, this is what justice looks like to us. Justice is the process of making things right. This is what that looks like. And so before we remove these barricades and try to open the streets, what does it mean? What does it look like for the city to be intentional to actually repair the harm done so that us as a community can thrive together? I think that's extremely important if we're going to be a society that is in pursuit of racial justice. I also think that it's important for, the way the city, they sent out the surveys, right? They sent out the surveys to figure out, what should happen. And the headlines of Star Tribune said 80% of the people want the streets reopened. Look, the survey said option A, reopen the streets. Option B, reopen the streets. Those aren't real options. Those aren't real options. And so I believe because it's been so long, because we're coming up on a year, we really have to lean in to the voices of the community and work together to create a kind of consensus to say, who do we want to be? Where do we want to go from here? And why do we want to go there? rather than just subscribing to the master plan that the city has designed for this community, what does it look like for us to go back to the drawing board and allow the people to imagine for themselves and design for themselves the kind of space they want to engage together? And how do we design it in a way that it functions and works for everybody? That's possible, right? So how do we keep from the temptation to go back to business as usual and to say, what does going forward look like so we don't repeat our same mistakes? And that really is going to take consensus. Now, we live in a democratic society where we're so used to majority vote. But I think in a situation like this, we really need to be able to sit down and listen and hear the voices and the stories of the people in our communities and say, what kind of consensus does it look like to design a space that's for everybody? That designs a space that continues to be for community, liberation, public grief, pilgrimage, and protest. Because that is now and forever a part of our story at 38th and Chicago.
Thank you so much. Anything else you want to add? We have the trial coming up, to the ending of it soon. This area is still going to be held, I'm guessing, by the community, as you're even saying. Anything else you want to add? Trial, ending, anything?
I think it's important for people to plan ahead, especially the youth. Plan ahead. Plan for a conviction. Plan for an acquittal. What do you need as a person? Well, like, you know your body better than anybody else. So what does it look like for you to decompress, to process? Make sure you tell your family, tell your friends what you need, so that way when the time comes and you're overwhelmed with emotion, that you already have a plan in place, that you don't have to think about, do I have everything that I need to actually navigate the next days ahead. And I just think that's a part of wellness, right? That's a part of navigating our self-care. Self-care is an extremely important part of resistance to injustice, because especially for Black and brown folks, if we die in the process of advocating for justice, whiteness wins. Because the goal of whiteness is to destroy the Black and brown bodies. And so we have to make sure that we care for ourselves and we actually think about what do we need to actually live and to thrive. Because at the end of the day, we need each other. Like, I need you alive. I need you alive. I need you to breathe. I need you to be fully who you are and who God created you to be, because you're going to do something great in this world. Like, for every youth who's a part of this movement, they are going to become great. They are going to become the future leaders. Hey, they're going to be the ones like taking care of me when I'm in a rocking chair. So what does it look like to ensure that they live to do that, right? That they live to tell their own stories. And so I think part of that is doing what they doing the self-reflection, self-examination to say, what do I need? What will I need if there's a conviction? What will I need if there's an acquittal? And make sure you set up those resources in advance, and so that they're ready for you, so you can, so your human needs are met. I just caring for the people, right? People over property. Most people don't think about that in advance. Like, we react. It's like we hear the response and then we react. And so you see people who go out into a march with flip-flops. Like, come on, y'all. Flip-flops, you're gonna mess up your knees, your ankles, your back. Like, but no. Like, if you know you're a protester, pack a protest bag. Make sure you have water and Gatorade and snacks and proper footwear, and do that in advance. Set it aside so that way you know you're ready if you need to go out and join a march or a parade, whichever one comes first. So little things like that. Or if you're an introvert like me, tell your people you need time alone. You need to process. You need, like, if you journal, make sure your journal got extra pages ready to go. Make sure your pen's got ink in it, ready to go. What do you need? Take care of yourself in this process in a way that allows you to pursue justice based off of who you are, in a way that will give you positive feedback, because that's how we stay alive in a movement.